My name is Jessie Ace. I'm part of a group of enabled warriors that you've probably never heard of. We're fighting back against our invisible illness and taking the dis out of disability. We don't give sympathy to our symptoms. They enable us to be the warrior that we are. If you ask doctors and nurses, they'd say what we're doing is impossible. But pushing the limits of our conditions is something that we have to break through every single day. See, we push the limits. We are mentally strong, and we can do anything. The question is, how far can we push those limits? This podcast will give you the answers. I'm Jessie Ace, and this is the Disabled to Enabled podcast. Warriors, and on the show today we have someone who is truly making a difference in the world. She set up her business, the MSing Link, and I love a word pun, so just thank you for that because that's so fun. After completing her doctorate degree from Simmons University in the US, she's worked with people that had multiple sclerosis during her first year of professional practice, and she saw tremendous results with what she was doing. And I'm so excited. She's created a business around this. I'm so excited that she's here today to chat with us. Please help me in welcoming warriors, Dr Gretchen Hawley. Woo!
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
How you doing? You okay?
I'm good. How are you?
Awesome. I'm great, thank you. I'm great. I'm so excited that you're here. This is going to be awesome. Okay, so can I start by getting straight in there and asking about how important you think the role of exercise is in MS, in reversing muscular atrophy and prolonging that healthy, long life that we all want?
I think it is extremely important. It's the one thing that everyone can do, whether you are super disabled, not disabled at all, wherever you fall on that scale. It is something where you can always create modifications for or advancements for. And it's the one way to directly use your muscles and brain connection. And research shows over and over again that even as little as 20 minutes is enough to get your system going and to get benefits in the areas of aerobic capacity and muscular strength. So it is just, I think, and obviously I'm a physical therapist, so I'm a little bit biased, but if you had to do one thing in terms of atrophy and just getting yourself stronger and more functional around your home with things like standing up off of your couch or climbing your stairs, getting into your car, exercise would be the one thing that I would choose.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's really weird a thing really, because I've known quite a lot of doctors and neurologists, and especially neurologists, because mine actually told me this physically. He said to stop doing exercise in case I had a relapse, and that's really not good advice for a doctor to say, is it? To be honest, I'm so surprised that he said that.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Less over the last couple of years than like 5 to 7 years ago, but doctors are still saying that. And I think in the world of multiple sclerosis, at least, the reason doctors used to say that would be due to maybe heat intolerance, and so you would get a pseudo relapse. So it would feel like a relapse, and it's because your core temperature was rising, because your core temperature only needs to rise by 1/2 degree in order to feel a difference in one or multiple symptoms, which is not that much. So they just wanted to prevent that from happening at all and said don't exercise. And now research is showing it. One of the very first things you should do when diagnosed is get a physical therapy evaluation. But yeah, that's not good advice anymore. And I have people, when I was working in a physical therapy clinic, I had people with multiple sclerosis who maybe were just diagnosed and they're walking fine. They don't really have many symptoms. They were just diagnosed with it. And their evaluation day looks the same as someone who has had a progressed disease of multiple sclerosis and maybe a lot of physical limitations. And they might only be coming for 1 to 2 sessions, whereas someone else might be more frequent. But it's the very first thing that you should do to get every single muscle group evaluated and start early.
That's really great advice. It's just, I literally just couldn't believe it. And I actually didn't know that. I didn't know that raising your body temperature by, what was it, 1/2 degree creates this I did
Yeah.
not know that. That is amazing, and that just actually makes so much sense, to be honest.
It's called a Fox phenomenon. And it's important because anything can increase your core temperature. So sometimes it's exercise, sometimes it's being in a hot room, sometimes it's the temperature outside. And especially in the summer, at least where I am right now, it's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit. It's really hot. And I have patients all the time who come into the clinic and they'll say that they were dying. They were just really fatigued, really weak, even though they were inside in air conditioning all day. And unfortunately, air conditioning only cools your skin temperature. It doesn't impact your core temperature. So one of the best things you can do for that is sucking on ice cubes or really, really cold water.
Okay, so that's really great. I mean, do you have any other tips for coping with heat while we're here? Because that's like a really interesting topic right now. It's the middle of summer.
Yeah, my best tip would be to ingest something cold because that's getting directly into your core temperature.
Wow.
Other than that, there's so many cooling products out there now. There's even clothes that are designed to wick away sweat, because the more sweat stays on you, the colder you can get, or sorry, the warmer you could get. So it wicks it away. There's neck towels, there's very lightweight vests, there's hats, there's scarves, there's wristbands. So you could just literally Google cooling products, and there's luckily so many out there that you could try. And I think it's also important to know that there are some days that you might need the vest because maybe it's a really hot day, or you have a lot of exercise to do, just like lawn work or something like that. And then there are other days where you might just need wristbands because it's not that hot out, or you're not going to be overheating that much. But it's all about being proactive and seeing it coming so you can prevent it.
Okay, brilliant. That's really good advice. Just going back to what you were saying about the different types of relapses. So you're talking about a pseudo relapse.
So a pseudo relapse is when it's basically a fake relapse. It occurs for a multiple reasons, but the biggest reason is when heat is involved. And it's basically when your symptoms, one or several, are worsening because of your core temperature. Now, another reason might just be maybe you walked a lot that day. So at the end of the day, you are just extremely fatigued, or your muscles just feel so weak. That sometimes can feel like a relapse, when really it's just your body adjusting, and it's going to take an extra day or 2 or 5 to recover from that. So anytime it's not a physical change in your brain, it's not a new lesion, and it goes away usually within 24 hours, that would be a pseudo relapse. A real relapse would be if there is a new lesion, or there's an active lesion somewhere and there is a change in the brain, spinal cord, wherever the lesion is.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. Why did I not know that?
There's a lot to know. We miss things every now and then.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the thing. And I think I've been diagnosed for 6 years now, so I should have like a grasp on this sort of stuff by now. But like, no, just things come along all the time. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Right.
Didn't know that. So can you tell us a little bit more about the MSing link, which I love that. How does virtual physical therapy work?
Yes, so the reason that I developed this is because I've been a physical therapist now for 6 years, and I have been a multiple sclerosis specialist for about 5 years. And I consistently have had the highest cancellation rate and no-show rate out of all the physical therapists that I worked with. And more often than not, it was my clients with MS canceling. But anytime I talked to them on the phone, like, hey, why are you canceling? Or why can't you come in today? It was always, the weather's too hot, I can't make it out of my house. Or it's raining, it's snowing, I can't get out. My ride canceled, so I can't get there physically. Or I'm just so fatigued. There's a whole bunch of really good reasons why someone would miss physical therapy if you have multiple sclerosis.
Yeah.
And so I tried thinking of, a way that I could get to them and still help them, because as we all know, MS or another chronic illness or not, you have to be consistent at something in order to make changes. So coming to physical therapy just once a week isn't really going to cut it. It has to be more consistent than that. So that's when I developed my virtual program. I realized that this could be a way where I could literally be in your living room, because all of the videos are pre-recorded, and you could be listening to me and watching me do exactly the same content that you would get from me in the physical therapy clinic that I was working in, but just in your own home. So that's why I developed it. Yeah, it was really exciting because pretty early on, I've had multiple people sign up from different countries. I'm currently in the United States, but I have a bunch of people from the UK. I have a handful from Australia, one from Lebanon. So I'm able to be international with helping people who have multiple sclerosis. And the program itself, it's focused on exercise, but there's so much more than that. The exercises are videos of me, kind of like you can see right now, and I explain and demonstrate how to do neuroplasticity based exercises, which what that means, the exercises are not necessarily for strengthening and getting big, strong muscles. The exercises have a goal of increasing the neural pathway from your brain to whatever muscle group we're working. So every exercise is based on neuroplasticity. And I explain how to do the exercise correctly and incorrectly, so you can be aware of that, what the exercise is good for, because a lot of people aren't able to put two and two together to realize just lifting your ankle like that is going to help with foot drop. So I try to explain why I'm making you do each of the exercises.
Excellent.
So there's exercises for strengthening, stretching, balance, and walking. There's home exercise programs. There's a symptom management section. So as we all know, there are many symptoms of multiple sclerosis that are not physical. So that section is a way where I can give my tips and strategies for heat intolerance. And we go fully into it, all these devices and things you can do. Fatigue management, energy conservation. There's a cognitive exercise you can do for dual tasks. So it focuses on a more wholesome approach of multiple sclerosis.
That's amazing, because quite often it's literally just, you know, if you watch some of these like MS workout type things, they're kind of like, okay, you do this exercise and then that's it. There's no explanation of why or what happens or anything like that. And I think that's a really important thing.
I think so too. And sometimes I feel like I'm being too chatty, but I think it is so important, because if you don't understand why, realistically, you're not going to do it long term. If you understand why, you're way more likely to stick to it consistently.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, do you find that there's a kind of mental barrier with MS people? As well, we kind of having to fight through fatigue, and they're having to fight through, you know, the tingliness and the numbness, and you know, how do you change their state so that you can encourage them to exercise?
Yeah, so the one thing, people who have multiple sclerosis, I give so much credit to them for exercising and staying so enabled, because it is tough. I mean, I don't have multiple sclerosis, but I know just from people explaining to me day after day all of the symptoms and how every single day those symptoms change.
Yeah.
So mentally, that is just emotionally draining.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for exercise, the thing that gives me the biggest hope, which is why, especially in my program, but in anywhere I talk, I try to really explain neuroplasticity, because it is research that has proven that your brain actually can create a new pathway for your muscles to start working again, or to just get muscles that are working, just not well, working better. So to me, the fact that that's proven in research is amazing. Like, it's not like we are just hoping, fingers crossed, we're hoping this works. We know it works. The one thing we don't know is how long it takes. So for some people, of doing neuroplasticity based exercises, maybe it's just a month or two and you're feeling good. You know, your way more physically able to do the things that you want to do. For other people, it might easily be a year, maybe 2 years. So in those situations, in my thought process is, you really just have to trust the process. Know that even though you can't see the neuroplasticity happening, you can't feel it, just know that it is happening behind the scenes. And as frustrating as it may be, keep up with it.
And that's another thing as well, is that it's keeping that going. I mean, do you do a kind of accountability kind of thing where you check up on people, make sure they're doing all the exercises and things?
Yes, so there's several different ways that we do that. One thing right away, as soon as someone signs up for my program, is they get an immediate questionnaire where it's questions that I filled out so that I can get to know more about them and their symptoms and their goals, because everyone with MS is different. So once they fill out the questionnaire, we have a one-on-one call where we chat about the questionnaire, and I can help guide them into the program of maybe which home program should they start with, or which videos should they watch first based on those things that we went over. We also do progress check-ins, which are kind of similar. It's a one-on-one call, and we just go over, how are things going? Are you liking the exercises? Are they too easy? Are they too hard? How can we tweak them to be more like you? And one of my favorite sections of the program is called the task-specific exercises. And it's a section where I can actually go over and demonstrate how to do an activity. So standing up from the ground is one of them, getting into and out of a car, climbing stairs, just things that you'd have to do on a day-to-day basis. So I get those based off of what my clients are telling me. So if they're saying things are going great, but I'm still having a really hard time with that, explaining it more directly and pop it into that task-specific exercise section. We also have a Facebook accountability group where I'll put some polls in there so you can say if you've done your exercises that day. Or I also use it for overall wellness. I'll put some meditation tips in there, different things like easy recipes that you could do in 3 steps. So it's just an overall wellness. And then the last thing that we do is we have monthly guest speakers, and you can actually join them live. So I'll email everyone and let them know when it is, what day, what time, who it is, what the background of the practitioner is, and they can join us live, which is really cool because we've had 2 neurologists on so far. We've had a neurosculpting meditation practitioner, which blew my mind. That was really cool. We've had an occupational therapist, a massage therapist, and so you can get your questions answered from those specialists, because I'm not a specialist in those areas. So being able to at least monthly see each other live is also really helpful for accountability.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way that you take the whole holistic approach, and you consider the whole person rather than just treating like the tiny bit of symptom and things like that, like majority of doctors do these days.
Yeah, definitely.
So I love the fact that you've got recipes in there and meditation tips as well. I mean, I'm a big fan of meditation. I think it's amazing. And just amazing. And how can people get in touch with, if they're interested in joining the MSing link, how can they get in touch with you about that?
So the quickest way would be to go to my website, which is www.msinglink, and that will give you all of the information that we just went over, as well as the different membership options. And my email is on there too, so it's kind of a one-stop shop. My email is Gretchen@drgretchenhawley.com. So if there's any questions, you can email me directly. And I'm also pretty active on Instagram. So if you were able to find me on Instagram, it's Dr.Gretchen. And you can send me a message there. You can comment on some of my posts. It's kind of like a sneak peek to the program. So it's free content because it's on Instagram. And it's just tips and tricks and motivation that you can do now. And then my program is more the full version, the in-depth information that you would need to fully succeed.
That's great. So you can actually kind of test out little bits before you actually sign up for it as well. So I love that. That's amazing.
Exactly.
Really good. So for everybody listening, I will put those links in the description below the video, so you can all go and check out Dr. Gretchen. So, okay, so tell us about so you went to something called an MS Consortium. Now, I've actually not heard of this before. So what happens at one of those kind of things? What goes on?
Yeah, I totally nerd out at this event every single year. So I've gone 3 times now, and it's a huge event specifically for MS specialists. And if you have MS, you can go as well. And it shares the most updated research in so many areas with all of the attendees, and the speakers are usually the ones who are doing the research, so you're hearing directly from them and can ask them questions too.
Wow.
There's so many different topics. I typically get more of the exercise based ones, but I went to one this year that was on art therapy and how helpful art therapy can be for people who have multiple sclerosis. There's tons on diagnosing MS and cognitive limitations and things you can do for that. So it's just really, there's neurologists, there's PTs, there's occupational therapists, there's any healthcare professional that works with MS is there. So it's like a one-stop shop to learn as much as you can for what's happened in that year. And I think it's really awesome because you need to keep adapting to what's new. If you're doing things that we were taught even 5 years ago, it's probably not relevant anymore. So at least for the physical therapy and exercise-based not interviews, but classes, webinars that I'll go to, we learned things like high intensity interval training is now seen to be helpful for multiple sclerosis, which wasn't necessarily the case a couple of years ago. So we learned the parameters of how to make that applicable to someone. We learned about nutrition and maybe what type of diet may be better. There's still no one diet that's best yet. So
it's all up in the air with diet, isn't it?
I'm excited. Our next month in August, which is actually 2 days from now, our guest speaker for the Missing Link is Dr. Terry Walls. And he just knows so much information about nutrition and our gut and just our whole system, how everything works together. So I'm excited to have her on our program.
Oh, that would be amazing. That really, really would. And I've been trying to get Dr. Wells on the podcast. If you could introduce us, that would be amazing.
I know.
That would be so cool. So you do a lot of public speaking as well, don't you? You've done a lot of keynote speeches. What was it like to do keynote speeches at the MS Society events?
I get so giddy even doing this podcast right now. Like, I love it. I love presenting, and I think the reason that I love it so much is because I have learned that things that may seem like common sense to me just because of my background as a physical therapist is not common sense to other people. And there are so many things that you can be doing with multiple sclerosis to help yourself and be your best self right now that you might not even know. And just knowing that something like neuroplasticity exists, so you shouldn't be giving up, and it is worth just doing things day after day, I think is so empowering and inspiring to give people that hope, like, okay, this is proven, I can do it if I'm doing it in the right way. So I love it. I've spoken at 2 different MS Society lectures, I guess you could call it. It was these big events that they had called Living Well with MS, and it was me and a neurologist as the keynote speakers, updating everyone on physical therapy as well as neurology based things. And then I also was in Savannah for MS Views and News. They had a presentation there that I was able to do, and I just love seeing people's faces during the presentation. They're kind of shaking their head as if everything's clicking, like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that, or oh yeah, that makes sense. So I love it. I get very excited any opportunity I have to educate people.
That's so good. That's so good. And you can tell just how passionate and how excited you are about it all as well. It's so lovely to watch. So do you have any tips for MSs that you can pass on about exercise or diet or just things that they can be making, like simple changes throughout their day to live healthier and happier?
I think well, I'm going to give you two tips. One is modify everything if you need to. If you don't need to, don't modify it. But if something is hard, don't just not do it. Try to find a way to make it easier. And that's a perfect example of, to me, that's like second nature. Like I could tell you 5 different ways to modify something. So it doesn't always come as natural, but just try to think of, how can I make this a little bit easier? Do I need to raise the surface? Or do I need to do it in a different environment? So that would be one thing. Modify so that it's something that you can do. And then my best tip is, if something is hard, examples that I gave earlier were climbing stairs, walking, getting up out of bed, getting up off of a low surface. If there's an activity that's hard for you to do, practice it as an exercise. One place where a lot of physical therapists who aren't MS specialists go wrong is that they will have you do regular orthopedic strengthening exercises. And unfortunately, a brain that has multiple sclerosis doesn't have that carryover to realize, oh, okay, I have full strength in my hips in this lying down exercise. That means I'm going to have full strength when I stand up. It doesn't work that way. You could be fully strong lying down, but you go to stand up and your legs buckle out from underneath you. So based on functional exercises, that means you need to do the things that are hard in order to get better at them. If you're doing an exercise that you can't relate to anything that you look like doing throughout the day, it's probably not going to help with those other things.
No, that's so true. It really is. And I think that's the case with quite a lot of like physical therapists as well, who aren't specialized, is that they do kind of treat everybody as the same sort of level.
Yes.
So it's really nice that you are specialized.
Yeah, I know the difference because I wasn't always MS certified. So when someone would walk into my office who had MS, yeah, I would treat them the same way that I would treat someone else. I would still make modifications, but the exercises, the goal was strengthening, versus as an MS specialist, sure, obviously we want you to be stronger, but we want you to be stronger because the connection from your brain is better, not necessarily just because the muscles are bigger. Muscles being bigger won't help with functional things throughout your day. It's that neural connection that needs to be stronger.
So true, so true. So can you talk a little bit about neuroplasticity a little bit more? Because I'm so intrigued by this. I've heard it on so many podcasts and things, and I'm just like, I'm so intrigued. Tell me more.
Yeah. And neuroplasticity is something that not only should you understand, but you should understand it to a point where you can tell someone, because that's how important it is. It's the reason that someone with multiple sclerosis actually can improve their neural pathways, just like what we're talking about. So neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to either make a new connection or strengthen a connection that's already there. And what I mean by connection is, every movement we do, even just moving your finger, before you move it, there's a spot in your brain that lights up and it sends a pathway that goes down your spinal cord, down through the nerve super fast, and then you can move your finger. So if you can move your finger, but it's really slow, or maybe it feels really heavy, those are common things that are present in multiple sclerosis, not necessarily with a finger, maybe a leg or an ankle or something. But if you can move it, that means that the connection is already there. You have a spot in your brain and the neural pathway all the way from the brain down to the fingertip that's working. And so when you practice that movement over and over and over again, you're going to be strengthening that connection. If you go to move your finger and it doesn't move at all, which unfortunately does happen in multiple sclerosis, there are people who can't lift their ankles or their leg at all. If you keep practicing over and over again, what your brain does, based on this neuroplasticity concept, is it finds a new pathway. So instead of going from point A to point B over and over again, it loops a different way around your brain. Maybe it does some zigzags, it goes forward, it goes up, back, swirlies. There's like millions of different ways that you can get from point A to point B. And so neuroplasticity is when your brain figures that out. It tries to find one that's working. And then once it does, it strengthens that one.
That's incredible. I did not know that. I did not know that. So I literally thought that it was literally A to B, and that was that.
Yeah, no, thank God that's not the way that it is. Because if it is,
No.
then there's no other way to get there.
Mm.
So yeah, there's so many different ways that you can get from point A to point B. The only way for your brain to figure it out is through practice, which is why I hear so often, Dr. Gretchen, I've been doing this for 6 months now. It's maybe a little bit better, but not really. What's your best advice? And my best advice is keep going. You keep doing it. It's happening. It's there. It's just going to take a while. And sometimes I might change the position that they're doing the exercise in, something like that.
Yeah.
But just keep doing it. That's the best thing that you can do.
That's absolutely fascinating. I love it. So do you have any advice for anybody listening who is maybe newly diagnosed, unsure of where to turn, they're worried, they're stressed out about facing this new way of life, they don't know what to do? What would be like the number one thing that you would tell them to go and do? What's the number one piece of advice?
It would change depending on what they're feeling. So if they're having, because I have some people who are newly diagnosed and they were having symptoms, but now they're not having symptoms anymore. Or maybe they're having symptoms, but it's just one thing. But so that's kind of a tough question. But I would say, if I had one piece of advice, I think it would be different for everyone based on where they're at, but especially maybe newly diagnosed, would just be to get ahead of it. I know a lot of people who are newly diagnosed that they're just gonna maybe wait for a symptom to occur, but get ahead of some of the most basic symptoms that might arise. So start doing strengthening exercises. Make sure you're keeping your core temperature down. Not that I want you Googling all this possible symptoms and doing something for each one of those, but just get ahead of those things that we can do easily. If you are just doing 20 minutes of exercise a day, or cooling your core temperature down, so drinking ice cold water, those are just some basic things that you can do throughout your day to hopefully get ahead of any weakness or heat intolerance or fatigue and endurance issues.
That's great advice. Okay, are you ready for some super quick secrets, Dr. Gretchen?
Yes, I'm excited. I've heard about these and I'm very much looking forward to them.
I love this round. It is my favorite. Okay, so Enabled Warriors, this is part of the show where we find out a little bit more information about the personality of our guest with some super quick secrets. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay, what is the most inspiring book you've ever read?
The most inspiring book I've read was The Miracle Morning.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of that book. I love it.
Are you?
Oh,
it changed my life.
Yes,
I love that book.
Oh
yes, such a good one.
Enabled Warriors listening, you seriously need to go and listen to The Miracle Morning. It's just the most incredible, what I say, story. It's not really a story, but like Hal Elrod's life is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah, I was doing it consistently for a while and my life was the best it has ever been. I just had such a positive outlook. For once ever, I was a morning person. I just felt so good when I was doing it. I keep meaning to get back into it.
Yes, you've got to get back into it. Totally. Yeah. It just makes such a difference. And Enabled Warriors, if you're listening, you can go and get a free copy of The Miracle Morning. If you go to Audible and you go to bit.ly, that's bit.ly/Enabled Warrior, you can get a free copy of the Miracle Morning book as a download. How cool is that?
Wow, that's amazing.
It's cool, right? Okay, Dr. Gretchen, what is the weirdest thing that you've ever done? Be honest.
The weirdest thing I've ever done, which is probably also the coolest and most educational thing, was cadaver dissection.
A what dissection?
A cadaver dissection.
Cadaver? Wow.
Yeah, so in physical therapy school, the very first thing you do before you even really start the PT courses is you dissect a cadaver, which is essentially someone who is deceased. And that is how you learn where the muscles attach, and you have to find all of the muscles, see where the nerves are, all of the bones. It was an extremely intense course and weird for sure, especially the first couple of times that you got in there. But I learned so much. And even right now, like if I would tell you to do a bicep curl, I can actually picture what that muscle looks like. And
that makes me go,
it helps me being a physical therapist.
That's incredible. Oh my God. I don't think I could do that. I don't think I could then this is why I'm not a doctor and you are a fucking I remember in biology once at A level when we had to dissect a fish, and that was like too much for me.
I had to do a cat and a mini shark when I was in undergraduate school. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Oh my God. Amazing. What is your favorite place that you've ever visited?
My favorite place was Paris, France. I lived there for 4 weeks when I was in undergraduate school, and we lived right in not an Airbnb, it was a bed and breakfast that was right across from the Luxembourg Gardens. There were cafes. It just had such a relaxed lifestyle that I was really into. I loved it there.
Oh, beautiful. I love Paris. Oh my God, it's amazing. What is the scariest thing that you've ever done?
The scariest thing by far was taking a trapeze class. It was something that a friend just asked me if I wanted to join her, and without even thinking, I was like, yeah, sure, that sounds like fun. But then when you are actually up there and you have to jump off of a super high surface and wrap your legs around and swing for someone's arms, it was terrifying.
Wow.
Super fun. I don't know if I would do it again, but it was really fun, but really terrifying every single time I got up there.
Oh my gosh, that sounds incredible. Oh wow. Okay, Enabled Warriors listening, and like literally the Dr. Gretchen is the coolest doctor I think I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to. Oh my goodness. How can other warriors find out more about you and what you do, Dr. Gretchen Hawley?
So the places where I'm most active, I do have a YouTube account where I will share videos. So that's Dr. Gretchen Hawley. My email is gretchen@drgretchenhawley.com. More information on my program is themissinglink.com or MSING link. And then Instagram is Dr.Gretchen. And I also have a Facebook page that is Dr. Gretchen.
Oh my goodness, how on earth do you keep up with all this? That's insane.
It's a lot, but it's so fun.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak to you. I think I could safely say that everybody has learned so much from you today.
I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for being here. And remember, warriors, stay enabled. Thanks, Gretchen. Bye. If you want to fight back against your invisible illness and help take the dis out of disability, then join the tribe on Facebook, facebook.com/enabledwarriors. If you love this podcast, click that subscribe button and never miss another episode. And remember, warriors, stay enabled.